Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 118 based on novel. So let's start. Under the guidance of Fang Qian, Xiao Yan and Murong Chanxian slowly crossed the half-emperor strong men who were waiting in line all the way to the door in front of the door. Fang Guanxia. Near the stone gate, two soldiers in black armor shouted to Fang Qian respectfully. Listening to this respectful voice, Fang Qian obviously has a high position in the hearts of these people. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang couldn't help but praise himself in his heart. If this modesty makes these people fear by strength, then the voice should sound difficult and weak, like a stone being knocked hard, but the scene in front of Xiao Yang is completely different. These two soldiers are obviously the voice of admiration from each other, which shows that Fang Qian is to convince people with virtue and make these soldiers truly respect them in their hearts. This kind of person is very rare in this chaotic continent. Yes. Hearing the respectful words of the two soldiers, Fang Qian nodded to them with a kind smile. Even if he took steps again, he wanted to bring Xiao Yang and them into the auction house. However, at this time, Fang Guanxia. This time, different from just now, the overbearing voice can clearly hear that the owner of the voice seems to have an unfair mood in his heart. On Fang Qian's wrinkled old face, he couldn't help but show a look of doubt. He slowly turned around and looked at the place where the voice came from. Fang Guanxia, a large group of us came to Yangcheng for information as early as 10 days ago, just to be able to participate in the auction. Today, our 5 people finally arrived at Yangcheng before dawn. We waited for several hours to wait until now, but this boy is just a newcomer. Why should he enter the auction house before us? Seeing the speaker, Fang Qian's old face couldn't help showing a look of surprise. The speaker was the first in line, a middle-aged man with a beard. His breath is incomparably thick, which is not weaker than Xu Songming, who was blasted off by Xiao Yang 2 days ago. Obviously, he is also a strong man with 8 stars and a half emperors. Moreover, I'm afraid his strength can definitely be called a leader even in the 8 stars and a half emperors. Listening to his words, it seems that it is the Yangcheng that has just arrived today. No wonder he doesn't know. At the same time, the big man also looked at Xiao Yang. Naturally, he could see that the young man in black was a 6-star and a half emperor. At this age, reaching the level of 6-star and half emperor is indeed enough to call him a demon, but it is not enough to give him priority to do anything. Therefore, the middle-aged man at the moment also showed a touch of hostility in his eyes when looking at Xiao Yang. Well, he was stunned. Xiao Yang had to smile bitterly to himself. Unexpectedly, this little thing can be hated by others. The big man has clearly ranked first. Why bother to do so? Hehe, sir, I can also understand that you have been waiting here for a long time for the purpose of entering the auction house as soon as possible. I can understand what you said, but there are always exceptions, and some people always have some privileges, and this gentleman can enter the auction house before you. Therefore, I hope this gentleman can understand. If you want to ask clearly, please ask the people behind you. The reason must be most people in Yangcheng know. Fang Qian's voice fell, and a group of people in the rear also whispered. At the same time, when they looked at the middle-aged man, they also showed a look of schadenfreude. I don't care. We waited so long, but the boy went in face to face. Anyway, he must give us an explanation. His face was horizontal, but the middle-aged man was stubborn and unwilling to roar. Once the middle-aged man said this, the look on Fang Qian's old face couldn't help sinking slightly. He thought he was always easy to talk, but the unreasonable behavior of the middle-aged man made him feel that he was deliberately looking for trouble. Hehe, it doesn't hurt. I want to know, sir, what kind of explanation do you want me to give you? Just when Fang Qian was about to speak, Xiao Yang took a step forward slowly and looked at the middle-aged man with a smile. The look on his face looked very gentle and seemed to be a man without temper. Seeing this, Fang Qian could not help frowning slightly. He didn't think Xiao Yang would be such a person. Although Xiao Yang looked approachable, he was definitely not a guy who could be slaughtered. The strong man looked up and down at the thin black-robed young man in front of him with an unhappy face. As soon as his eyes turned, he immediately gave a cold hum, and a cruel color appeared on his face, and said sternly, I won't fight with you. I'll save myself the curse of bullying the small. Well, as long as you can stop me, I'll take it as if it never happened. Otherwise, I'll let our 5 brothers go first. While saying this, the big man raised his thumb and pointed at the 4 people behind him. Suddenly, the 4 people behind him also stepped out one after another, revealing rough faces. Sir. Hello. Hearing the big man's words, Fang Qian and Murong Qianqian couldn't help shouting at Xiao Yang at the same time, especially Fang Qian, who couldn't help but want to step forward. I believe that as soon as he came forward, even if these people are unwilling to speak again, they won't say another half a word. However, just as Fang Qian was about to move forward, Xiao Yang outlined a faint smile at the corners of his mouth, lifted it gently with one hand, and stopped the movements of the two behind him. At the same time, he smiled at the big man with a smile in his mouth. Okay. The simple words made everyone's faces look stunned. Everyone's eyes swept each other on Xiao Yang and the big man. The two people stood together. It was like a thin monkey and a giant bear. The gap was self-evident, but it was like this. Xiao Yang really answered it. You know, even with his physique alone, this big man is more than twice as big as Xiao Yang. If the two people touch each other, the people present can't imagine the picture. In this regard, Xiao Yang slowly outlined an inexplicable smile at the corners of his mouth. His head tilted slightly. He looked at the big man, raised his hand, hooked his fingers at the big man, and smiled. Come on. As the words in Xiao Yang's mouth fell, the crowd around him immediately whispered. Everyone could not help sighing for Xiao Yang's madness and boldness. Even if he is a third-order herbalist, his character is too rampant. Without the help of soul power and fighting spirit, he wants to meet a strong man whose physique is much higher than his own. It's just like dying. Compared with the sigh on everyone's face, Fang Qian and Murong Qianqian are much calmer at the moment. Murong Qianqian doesn't need to say much. Based on her understanding of Xiao Yang, the latter is definitely not a man of high will. Whenever she makes a move, she must be sure. Since Xiao Yang dares to face the big man alone at the moment, perhaps he has that ability. As for Fang Qian, although he was worried, he also believed that Xiao Yang, a third-class herbalist, would not make this move for no reason. When the big man saw Xiao Yang making this provocative gesture, his face suddenly became fierce in a pair of fierce eyes, and a surge of anger also arose from the bottom of his heart. Hum. With a cold hum, the big man's cross eyebrows and upright angry eyes shot at Xiao Yang. A pair of huge palms slowly clenched together. The terrible force made the surrounding void tremble. Boy, you have seed. Let me fight you, so that you can know which is more important, talent and strength. The voice fell, and the big man's fists fiercely touched each other in front of his chest. The dull sound made the surrounding void tremble violently. At the same time, a harsh buzzing sound also spread in everyone's ears at the moment, which was unbearable. Seeing this, Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed. Unexpectedly, his left hand was slowly negative behind him, his right hand was raised, his wrist was turned, his palm was facing the big man, and he said in a condensed voice, "Please." When the word "please" fell, a fierce color suddenly appeared on the big man's face. Xiao Yang's repeated contempt really made him feel very angry in his heart. The strong body was suddenly shocked, and the right fist was closed to the back waist. Immediately, the soles of the feet suddenly stepped on the floor tiles under the feet. The terrible force erupted from under the soles of the feet. Even if the ground under the body was broken into a pile of powder, at the same time, a footprint of several inches deep was left at the foot of the big man. Then, the big man's body was like a shell coming out of the chamber. With the speed of lightning and the momentum of lightning, he came to Xiao Yang's face in the twinkling of an eye. His body tilted and immediately blew out with a fist, straight to Xiao Yang's face. Boy, remember, this is the consequence of your trust. The heavy voice spread like a low animal roar. At the same time, Fang Qian behind Xiao Yang couldn't help mobilizing the fighting spirit in his body. Entering the auction house as Xiao Yang's third-order herbalist, the treatment is completely at the guest's level. Even those who fight the emperor and the strong can't compare with it. If such people were injured in front of his auction house today, wouldn't his Tianyun auction house have no chance to make friends with him again? With this in mind, the look on Fang Qian's old face could not help but change slightly. In his heart, he was angry with the big man. If the big man really dared to hurt Xiao Yang today, he would definitely kill all the 5 people without stinginess. This is the attraction of a third-order herbalist. However, at the next moment, just when the people present looked at Xiao Yang with regret, when the look on Fang Qian's old face became colder and colder, the corners of Xiao Yang's mouth rose slowly and showed a slight smile. Immediately, one side of the outstretched palm happened to be in front of the big man's huge fist at an extremely strange angle. Seeing this scene, the big man's eyes could not help shrinking slightly. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang was able to resist his attack. However, it's too late. The big man's giant fist has come before Xiao Yang's face, but it's just a foot away. Even if Xiao Yang protects him with his palm, how can he resist it? Drink. With a sneer in his heart, the look on the big man's face became more fierce at the moment. At the same time, the power was also more and more terrible on the huge fist thrown at Xiao Yan. Bang! However, the next moment, when the big man's giant fist was smashed down, it was as if it had fallen on a wall. The powerful giant fist was easily blocked by a white palm that looked like a woman. Such a funny and dramatic scene immediately solidified the look on the faces of the people present. At this moment, everyone present was like a statue, and his body was fixed in place. Everyone's face was full of incredible shock. The scene in front of them really made them feel a burst of unimaginable, even to the point of being unbelievable. The big man's powerful fist was so easily followed by Xiao Yang. Moreover, while blocking the big man's fist, his palm did not tremble. This shows that the big man's fist is not even possible to shake Xiao Yang. How is it possible? The big man stared at his fist blocked by Xiao Yang, and his heart was full of fear. He really didn't think that in front of this black-robed youth who looked clear and thin like straw, how could he have such terrible physical strength? He was sure that Xiao Yang didn't use the slightest bit of fighting spirit in the confrontation just now. What he relied on was only his own physical strength. Hehe, it seems that you have lost. Qingjuan's face showed a warm smile that was harmless to humans and animals. Immediately, Xiao Yang's palm shook slightly. In a short time, an appalling terrible force burst out from Xiao Yang's palm like a dragon going to sea. It was just a face-to-face, and he blew the big man out. Under the attack of this distance, the look on the big man's face suddenly changed wildly. His strong body could not help but step back like a bear. Every step would cause the ground under his feet to collapse. It was not until the big man stepped back and withdrew dozens of steps that he hit the crowd behind him. The crowd fell, and the big man stopped at this moment. At this moment, between heaven and earth, everyone's eyes to Xiao Yang were filled with incomparable horror. Outside the auction house, at the moment, everyone's faces were capitalized with unbelievable words, and everyone showed a stunned look and opened his mouth. For the scene in front of them, everyone in the field did not expect that the guess in their hearts was overthrown by the black-robed youth in their eyes. Cough. He coughed violently for a few times. After a good moment, the big man just helped each other behind him. In the afternoon, he got up from the ground. Immediately, a pair of big round eyes stared at Xiao Yang. At this moment, the disdain in the eyes of the big man had already disappeared. Instead, it was a shock and awe from his heart. He did not expect that the physical strength of the thin-looking young man in black would be so terrible. No wonder he will be treated like this by Fang Qian. I admire you for your extraordinary strength. As for what happened just now, I apologize to you. I hope you don't take it seriously. He stood up and bowed his hands respectfully to Xiao Yang. This is respect for a strong man. At the same time, it also shows his awe of Xiao Yang. Although the fight just now was hasty and short, the big man can still see that the strength of Xiao Yang in front of him is definitely far above him. Although the cultivation of the latter seems to be only 6-star and half emperor, this is not enough to fully summarize the strength he has. This point has been raised incisively and vividly from the confrontation between the two just now. Moreover, judging from the power of Xiao Yang's palm just now, Xiao Yang obviously reserved his hand, otherwise, the big man would not just be blown away. Seeing that the big man showed such a respectful attitude towards Xiao Yang, the four people behind the big man also looked at each other and bowed their hands to Xiao Yang without hesitation. From then on, it can be seen that the relationship between the 5 people is absolutely very close. Otherwise, the 4 people behind him will not react together because of the actions of the big man alone. Looking at the 5 people who showed their respectful posture in front of him, Xiao Yang couldn't help showing a look of surprise, especially the 4 people behind the big man. It's really something worthy of human admiration to have such brothers who share joys and sorrows in this chaotic continent. Hehe, you're welcome. I just haven't moved my muscles and bones for a long time, so I want to try with this friend. If there's any injury, please forgive me. This gesture of the 5 people also made Xiao Yang feel good for them. While talking, a touch of big sleeves and an invisible and magnificent soul force swept out quickly. Immediately, he gently lifted the 5 people who bowed up. This is soul power. Xiao Yang's move also made the 5 people's hearts coagulate slightly. The 5 people lowered their heads and looked at each other. They all saw a surprise from each other's eyes. What surprised them was not that Xiao Yang used the soul power, but the strength of the soul power. Even they felt an invisible oppression on it. Are you an array master or a herbalist? The 5 stood upright. The man headed by him looked at Xiao Yang with surprised eyes and asked solemnly. Xiao Yang's physical strength is enough to frighten them, but if he is still a powerful herbalist or array mage, he really needs to call him against the sky. This gentleman is a herbalist, and he is also a third-order herbalist. The reason why he doesn't have to queue up is that he was invited by several strong fighters who are already in the auction hall, but At this time, Fang Qian, who came back from his surprise, took a step forward slowly, looked at the leading man with a smile, and a smile appeared in his muddy old eyes. When Fang Qian said this, the body of the 5 men suddenly beat a spirit in place. In his heart, a feeling of fear quickly arose, especially the leading man, who was extremely regretful. He stopped the people invited by the strong man of Do Di and even started to fight with them. At the moment, the strong men of Do Di must have been aware of all this. Once they are dissatisfied with themselves, isn't it dangerous for themselves and their brothers behind them? At the thought of putting his brother in danger because of his impulse, the man felt a burst of sadness in his heart. It seemed that death had come and was not far from their doomsday. Don't worry. They won't do anything to you. It's just a small duel. Moreover, they must not be dissatisfied with you, but will feel very satisfied. It seems that he guessed the man's mind. Xiao Yang smiled faintly. At the end of his words, Xiao Yang also turned around again. His dark eyes looked at the auction house in front of him. The light in the depths of his pupils flashed, as if he saw something. At the same time, in the auction market, in several separated boxes, some old people with rich breath also could not help but frown. Immediately, a layer of glittering energy cover, like an inverted bowl, shrouded the whole auction house from the outside. Is this array? Inside the box, Murong Qianqian looked at the golden energy mask through the light curtain in front of him with his big eyes open. The jade finger gently touched his dexterous and exquisite chin, showing a trace of doubt on his pretty face. It's an array, and it's also an array with absolutely no low level. With this, I'm afraid the strong fighting emperor will want to break it for a while and a half, and there will be no small difficulties. Compared with girls, Xiao Yang wants to see more comprehensively. As soon as he exports, he gives a general idea of the extraordinary of this energy mask. Hiss. Smelling the speech, Murong Qianqian's pretty face changed instantly. It can stop the array of the strong fighting emperor. How many arrays can it be done? On one side, Xiao Yang, who was originally nestled in the chair, stood up slowly, and a solemn color appeared in his dark eyes. It can resist the strong fighting emperor. Even if the quality of this array is again, it is definitely second to the third-order array. Moreover, even if it is placed in the third-order array, it is definitely superior. However, according to this array, it is still a fourth-order array. As soon as Xiao Yang's voice fell, Murong Qianqian's pretty face could not help but become surprised. The fourth-order array is a terrible array that the strong fighting emperor is afraid of. Kaka. While Xiao Yang and Murong Qianqian were discussing the energy shield, there was another change on the external stone platform. In a burst of mechanical wheel sound, the ground around the crystal column cracked slowly. Immediately, a ladder channel extending to the deep underground appeared in the eyes of countless people in the auction house. The ladder emerged, and then an old man in a golden robe walked out slowly with a smile. As soon as the old man appeared, he was swept out of his body. Under this momentum, everyone's face changed in an instant in the whole auction house. The people who had been quiet because of Fang Qian's appearance did not even dare to breathe at the moment. What a powerful momentum. I think this person should be the president of Tianyun Auction House, Dong Chuan. When the old man appeared, he dignified the hearts of all the people in the field. At the same time, some people who came to Yangcheng for the first time also couldn't help shouting at the bottom of their hearts. At the same time, the strong fighting emperor in those boxes also showed a color of fear on everyone's face. A pair of cloudy eyes stared at the old man who appeared on the stone platform through the light curtain. It was obvious that even they dared not have the slightest carelessness in Dong Chuan's heart. At the same time, Xiao Yang, who was in the box at the moment, was filled with a deep and dignified color on his face. At this moment, Xiao Yang can compare with the terrible soul power of the third-order herbalist. When Dong Chuan appears on the stone platform, his cultivation is naturally seen through by Xiao Yang. Dong Chuan, whose real power is terrible, came to the western regions from Xiao Yang. After the 4 major sect leaders, he saw the strongest strong man fighting the emperor. His cultivation is so profound that he seems to have reached the level of 5-star fighting the emperor. I, Dong Chuan, know me better than many friends. Today is the auction held by Tianyun Auction House in Yangcheng. I would like to thank you for your support. Dong Chuan, who was born now, glanced slowly around. When he passed some places, he paused slightly. His sharp eyes were full of essence, and then passed slowly. At the same time, a loud smile rang through everyone's ears in the venue. Dong Chuan's laughter fell, which also attracted the laughter of several different forces from those boxes. Although many of the strong fighting emperors here are afraid of Dong Chuan's strength, Tianyun Auction House is also an old force in this burning city. It has existed for many years and naturally has a wide range of friends. Dong Chuan only makes friends with all parties. Many strong fighting emperors present have more or less friends with him. Hearing the laughter echoed by those, Dong Chuan also smiled. He immediately turned his eyes. After looking around, he finally stopped his eyes on a box, which is the box where Xiao Yang and Murong Qianqian are located. At the moment, a brilliant light burst out of Dong Chuan's fierce eyes. His sight seemed to pass through the wall. Across the light curtain, his sight fell on Xiao Yang. Feeling the latter's eyes on himself, Xiao Yang seemed to feel something. A pair of dark eyes slowly raised and looked at Dong Chuan Yao Yao through the light curtain in front of him. Immediately, both of them showed a kind smile to each other. Hehe, you must be looking forward to this auction house, so I won't say any more annoying nonsense. With a slight smile, the old man stroked his beard with one hand and continued in a flat tone under the gaze of thousands of eyes around him. However, I still want to remind you of some things. I believe everyone knows the rules of the auction. If there is anyone who is not open-minded and wants to make trouble in our Tianyun auction house, although I think I have always been kind, I will never show mercy on such thing. At the moment when Dong Chuan's voice fell, an invisible momentum suddenly swept out of his body and swept into the whole auction house. In the twinkling of an eye, the crowd in the field became completely silent. Even some of the people with evil thoughts quickly converged their thoughts. At the same time, the faces of the strong fighting emperor in the box were also different. Although Dong Chuan's words seemed to be addressed to all the people present, how could they not understand that in the Tianyun auction house, only those who dared to make trouble were left to fight against the emperor? Other people, even if they were 9 stars and half emperors, could not stir up any wind and waves. Dong Chuan's words were addressed to them. Tut tut. It's worthy of fighting the emperor. Such a style. Hearing the meaning of the words, Xiao Yang secretly smacked his tongue in his heart, couldn't help shaking his head, and showed a shocking color on his face. Relying on the power of one person is to frighten the strong from all sides. The strong fighting emperor is really so strong. Hehe. Next, please enjoy the auction feast brought by my Tianyun auction. Seeing that the deterrent effect he wanted had been achieved, Dong Chuan smiled. The overbearing and dignified color in his eyes the moment before had disappeared in an instant, as if it had never happened from beginning to end. When the words fell, Dong Chuan looked around the venue again, smiled and arched his hands at the box in that circle, then nodded and looked at Fang Qian on the side, and then slowly withdrew from the auction platform. With Dong Chuan's withdrawal, Fang Qian took over the power again. A pair of muddy old eyes slowly swept the whole audience, smiled faintly, and then 2 thin palms patted. While the applause came out, everyone's eyes gathered on Fang Qian. This boy doesn't seem to be a good stubble. The 3 fields of physical strength, fighting spirit, and medicine refining can practice so much at the same time. Who is this boy? In a slightly dim and silent box, an old man wrapped in a black robe showed a pair of sharp eyes like a blade, and the sharp light flashed through the depths of his cloudy eyes. The old eyes narrowed and whispered. At the same time, in another box, a middle-aged man dressed in brocade robes with a square face was narrowing his eyes and seemed to be thinking about something. Black-robed youth, young girl, it seems that the people who hurt my son are such 2 people. The man is Xiao Yang. As for the woman, it doesn't matter. A low whisper in his mouth. Immediately, the middle-aged man lifted his hand and hooked his fingers at will. The next moment, the void on one side of the middle-aged man suddenly twisted. A man in black who could not see his face bowed and half knelt beside the middle-aged man. Patriarch. Well, go and find out when they arrived in Yangcheng and from which direction. Find out carefully for me. If it's In the end, a pair of silver eyes of the middle-aged man suddenly burst into an uncontrollable killing intention. Then, the man in black beside the middle-aged man shouted yes respectfully, and then disappeared into the box. Outside, Xiao Yang slowly took back his eyes and casually glanced aside. Murong Qianqian, who was still stunned, glanced and said, "Leng what Leng, aren't you in a hurry? Let's go." The words fell, and the girl then recovered, while Xiao Yang's eyes turned to Fang Qian, smiled and said, "Please ask the steward to lead the way." "Hehe, sir, please come in." Hearing the speech, Fang Qian was not polite and made an invitation gesture to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang nodded and smiled. The three people slowly disappeared into the dimly lit auction house in the eyes of a crowd full of awe and envy behind them. In a box with bright and soft light, at this moment, Xiao Yang and Murong Chanxian are sitting in it, while Fang Qian left here first because of his official business. In such a big box, there were only Xiao Yang left in the twinkling of an eye. The box is large enough to accommodate 20 or 30 people at the same time without being crowded. At this moment, there are only 2 people in the box, Xiao Yang. This is not a small space. Coupled with the silent 2 people at this moment, the atmosphere immediately becomes boring. The soft and delicate body nestled in the chair paved with milky white fur. At the moment, Murong Chanxian looks like a rabbit returning to the nest. On a delicate pretty face, he shows a bored look. A pair of clear beautiful eyes stare directly at the opposite side. On the painted black wall, there is a light curtain, which is projecting the scene in the auction house on it. With the continuous influx of people, the originally empty stone steps on the auction site were quickly filled with crowded people. The noise became more noisy in the ring auction site, turned into a buzzing sound and echoed endlessly, which made people feel uneasy. Hey, is the medicine you mentioned very important to you? Until a certain moment, Murong Chanxian, who was full of boredom, turned her beautiful eyes to Xiao Yang, showed a look of doubt on her pretty face, and asked Xiao Yang. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang was slightly stunned, then he frowned again, immediately nodded slightly and said, "Yes, Flaming Flower, it's about my breakthrough in fighting the Emperor." Do di. Xiao Yang's words fell, and the look on Murong Chanxian's pretty face could not help but coagulate slightly. A pair of beautiful eyes flashed a look of surprise. But then, the girl frowned again, raised her beautiful eyes, stared at Xiao Yang suspiciously, and asked again, "You're not lying to me. Don't think I'm not a pharmacist. There's no such medicine as Flaming Flower to break through the imperial robbery pill used by Emperor Do. This should be the medicine used by another pill." The eyes were imperceptible and slightly frozen. Xiao Yang was non-committal about this. Seeing that Xiao Yang didn't answer, the girl's doubts were even worse. When she wanted to continue to ask questions, the originally noisy people on the light curtain opposite them didn't know when they had been quiet. At the same time, on the stone platform in the center of the whole auction house, the original flat stone platform suddenly trembled violently. Immediately, in the center of the stone platform, a square crystal column was slowly raised from the middle of the stone platform. At this moment, the eyes of everyone in the field gathered together. Everyone's eyes showed a touch of excitement, because they knew that the long-awaited auction was finally about to begin. Dang! The familiar bell intonation sounded on the auction ground. Suddenly, everyone's eyes were staring at the sound source. At the same time, on the stone platform, next to the newly erected crystal column, the invisible void. After a while of distortion, an old man's body slowly appeared in front of the people on the scene. Inside the box, Xiao Yang looked at the old man who appeared on the light curtain. His dark eyes could not help but coagulate slightly. Unexpectedly, the old man who appeared on the stone platform was Fang Qian. "Oh, no wonder you dare to auction in this open-air environment. The auction items are personally protected by the strong fighting emperor. As long as they are not outlaws, I'm afraid no one will make trouble at this auction." With a sigh of amazement in his heart, Xiao Yang smiled and shook his head. He was able to let the strong fighting emperor come out to preside over the auction. I have to say that it was really a luxury. At least, from Xiao Yang's cultivation to now, he was really the only one in his life. But then, just when everyone thought the auction was about to begin, there was a sudden buzz over the auction house. When the light gradually faded down, the people saw that the first auction item was a scroll, as Fang Qian said, a scroll of fingering skills. Feng Yu Finger is a low-level person, and fingering fighting skills have always been scarce. Although it is difficult to cultivate, it can take people by surprise in wartime. I believe those present are not ordinary people. We should also know how some fingering fighting skills are difficult to deal with. Fang Qian stroked his white beard, another hand gently waved his sleeve robe, sent out a clever force, and slowly opened the scroll in the front of the face and the silver plate. At the moment when the scroll was opened, a silver light suddenly burst out like thunder. Immediately, over the scroll, it condensed into a silver-white demon phoenix nearly 10 feet high. The demon phoenix's body was shocked. Even if he looked up to the sky and gave a violent drink, at the same time, the dragon phoenix's blood in Xiao Yang couldn't help moving slightly. Oh! This thing actually contains the smell of the demon phoenix family. Xiao Yang was slightly surprised when he felt the change of the dragon phoenix's blood in his body, but he didn't expect that the current volume of finger fighting skills could still be related to the Tenryou phoenix family. But then, the dragon phoenix blood in Xiao Yang's body seemed to be alive. A slight movement not controlled by Xiao Yang, an invisible pressure, swept out of Xiao Yang's body in an instant. On the other side, Fang Qian's silver demon phoenix appeared in front of the old man with a smiling face. He couldn't help but show a look of although in his eyes. Immediately, he slowly continued to say, "Hehe, the mystery of Fengyu's finger lies in that after you have achieved great success, you can use this fighting skill to condense a demon phoenix virtual shadow. Although it's not the body, it's not inferior. What you see now." Poof. Fang Qian's voice was falling, but he saw that it had condensed just a moment ago and turned into a demon phoenix. The silver demon phoenix roaring up to the sky turned into a silver feather in a twinkling, and slowly fell on the scroll. Ah! Feathers! The appearance of this scene made the faces of all the people present stunned. Even the expression on Fang Qian's old face could not help but become stunned at this moment. What's going on? Fang Qian's eyebrows couldn't help shaking hard, and his face whispered in amazement. At the same time, in the box, Xiao Yang at the moment, the expression on an old face also couldn't help becoming a little embarrassed. At the same time, he also understood in his heart that the so-called Phoenix Feather Finger was just a fighting skill cultivated by relying on a feather of the demon phoenix. However, what happened at the moment made Xiao Yang couldn't help rubbing his nose with his hand. His eyes turned, pretended to be nothing, and temporarily shifted his eyes elsewhere. This video will end here.